Well, hello, Kitty. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure, pleasure. And this week we've got Kitty George joining us from G4S, the Corporate Affairs Director. You've been there for quite a long time, so excited to hear the answers to your three questions. So the first question is that dreaded party question we all get. So what do you do again?
See, I think it's a great question. I
It is a
love it
great
when I
question.
get asked this because I love what I do.
Uh,
And I think what I do is really interesting and really varied. So I've got so many fun stories about different things that I've done. My career in communications has taken me from, sort of swimming with journalists in the River Thames to organising press trips in Ethiopia and feeding jelly babies to celebrities at the finish line of the London Marathon. There's sort of loads of really random, really interesting things
uh,
that I've done as part of my role in communication. So I love the question. What do we do as a function? I mean, our role is to build the brand and to protect our reputation, put simply. I think there's a common understanding that as communications professionals, we're the voice of the company, that we're the sort of spokespeople for the company. But I think there's also an element of we're the voice of the people. So when people come to me for advice, I often think, well, what would the court of public opinion think? That they're the judge at the end of the day. So it's not just about us being a broadcaster and standing with a megaphone shouting about the great things we do, although we do
uh,
try and do that as well. It's about sort of the sort of outside in point as well. So a lot of what we do is about simplifying
uh.
and filtering, tailoring our messaging.
Is also about relevance, right? It's if the organisation thinks something's interesting that nobody else cares about, it's helping them to understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my pet peeves is, I think there's a weird human trait where people feel they have to use big, ever long words to make them sound important. So, making sure that we clarify our messages, simplify them. Um, I don't know if you know this about me, but I studied Latin and ancient Greek at university.
I didn't know that about you, though.
So
So
I
you know
love
what Vox
language.
means.
Yeah, exactly. I love the fact, with Vox Populi, that's where Vox Pops come from, the voice of the people. It's absolutely a relevant name for your company. But, I think I love language and I love using rich language as I think most communications professionals do. But I think that there's a time and a place. And it really frustrates me when you see sort of corporate jargon or people using long words for the sake of it.
Yeah.
When I get asked this question, give a different answer every time I get asked. And I was thinking that's probably quite a bad thing. I don't have a straight answer. But actually, I think you have to tailor. Rule number one in communications is tailor your message.
To your
So who's
audience.
your
Uh,
audience? And actually, depending on who I'm speaking to, I will change how I describe what I do.
Looking back over it, is there a singular piece of advice you'd give your, we're saying more junior self for these rather than younger, but is there a singular piece of advice you'd offer?
Suppose when I first started my career 25 years ago, I think there was definitely a perception that you had to be brash, very loud, overconfident, perhaps almost aggressive in your style. And I think there was a view in some of the places where I worked that the ends always justified the means. It didn't matter what you did as long as you got the result at the end. And a lot of that didn't sit well with me. That's not my natural style. It's certainly
Sure.
not how I lead. And I think that my advice would be, just stay true to yourself and be kind. And, you don't need to be ruthless to succeed. You can be a really good leader whilst making very difficult decisions, but doing it in a way that is with integrity, is in line with our values and with my personal values. Listen more as well. It's okay not to be the loudest voice in the room. I think when you start out, you think you've got to be really loud, and time and experience has taught me actually that you can get an awful lot by listening
Yeah.
and then put your point of view across, but you don't need to be the loudest voice in the room.
And until you get into that space where you're working with senior leadership very regularly, you don't realise how good certain leaders are at being quiet and just listening.
One of the best bits of advice I was ever given was listen with the intent of having your mind changed. So that real active listening. So listen with the expectation that you are going to have your mind altered. You might have made your mind up, but wait and listen to other people's points of view. I think that's such wise counsel.
We all need to take these days, I think, as well.
Yeah, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so use your ears more, mouth less.
Excellent. Some really good advice there, I think. Absolutely spot on about just being you instead of being the version of you that you think everyone wants you to be, right? That's the reality that we all face at different points in our career. So the final question, I think it's my favourite because I think it reveals something of people that you wouldn't otherwise get. If you weren't working in the world of corporate affairs, what would you like to be doing? You could take it either way.
Oh, it's a really hard one. A really hard one because, in some ways I can't imagine me doing anything else apart from what I do now. I think if I wasn't doing what I do now, if I wasn't in corporate affairs, I think I'd probably be an investigative journalist or perhaps a sort of perpetual student academic because I love learning, something like that. What would
The world
I love
needs more
to
of
do?
both of those things.
Well, it needs more good communicators though too.
I really like it when it's a hard question to answer because it suggests that you probably have landed in something that connects with you on a deeper level in terms of what you're doing now. So, yeah, it's a tough one to answer, isn't it?
It's a really tough one. So you say the first one was going to be is the dreaded question, but that was
This
easy.
is the one.
This is much more difficult.
That's funny. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for doing that, Kitty. That was 3 really interesting
Pleasure.
answers and very grateful.
No problem. Thanks, James.